Tonight on NewsCenter. South Korea will sanction 40 individuals and 30 organizations abroad, mostly in North Korea, as part of unilateral punitive measures on the North for its recent nuclear test and rocket launch. China will not accommodate North Korea's pursuit of its nuclear and missile programs and is open to multilateral nuclear talks with 6 party member states minus Pyongyang. And North Korea stole information from key South Korean officials' smartphones, reveals Seoul's intelligence agency, just the latest in a series of Pyongyang cyber attacks against Seoul. NewsCenter begins right now. It is 8 a.m. in New York, 12 noon in London, and 10 on a Tuesday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. South Korea has unleashed a wave of direct sanctions against North Korea, blacklisting dozens of North Korean companies and people for the first time and banning ships that have visited North Korean ports from its waters. The sanctions, which overlap with current measures imposed by the U.S. and the UN, nevertheless signal President Park Geun-hye's intent to inflict as much pain as possible on Pyongyang following its recent defiance. Connie Kim has our top story.
South Korea focused on strengthening financial and maritime sanctions against a reclusive state. The Prime Minister's office unveiled the measures on Tuesday, with hopes of making the North think twice about its pursuit of weapons of mass destruction.
North Korea's provocations, like its nuclear and long-range ballistic missile tests, cannot be accepted. North Korea's bad decisions should be corrected by making them pay a heavy price for their actions.
The new sanctions fall under 4 main measures. First, South Korea is blacklisting 40 individuals and 30 organizations. The individuals on the list include people who have contributed to the North's nuclear weapons development and those who have been involved in its weapons trade. Secondly, all ships that have stopped at any North Korean port within 180 days will be banned from entering South Korean ports. This comes on top of other similar maritime sanctions imposed by Japan that also ban North Korean ships. Third, South Korea will strengthen its monitoring of exports and imports related to North Korea in order to block any of its goods from entering the country through another nation. To do this, Seoul is going to come up with a product watch list. Last but not least, South Korean citizens, including those living overseas, are going to be asked to refrain from visiting private North Korean facilities, such as North Korean restaurants in China, which are believed to be substantial sources of cash for the regime.
Well, our Connie Kim is live in the studio with us. Now, Connie, 40 individuals and 30 entities have been blacklisted by South Korea. Now, give us some context here. What does this mean? Looking at these individuals and entities, what kind of significance is there?
Well, good evening, Kwan-young. This new blacklist announced by South Korea is expected to ramp up even more pressure against the reclusive regime. Now, this is because 38 North Koreans and 24 entities that were not listed in the UN sanctions has been added to South Korea's new blacklist. It's also important to note that it's the first time South Korea has specifically pinpointed individuals and companies by name, which is usually a measure that has been taken by the UN, the US, and the European Union. And looking at some of the outstanding names on the list, there is Kim Young-chul, a former head of North Korea's intelligence agency. Kim is believed to be responsible for the sinking of the warship Cheonan, as well as the artillery attack on South Korea's border island of Yeonpyeong-do in 2010. And then there is also Hong Seung-moo and Hong Young-chil. Now, both figures are believed to have taken the lead in North Korea's nuclear test in January. And then there is Chang Sung-chul, the representative of the Korea Mining Development Trading Corporation. Now, remember, his name had been taken out from the UN sanctions list at Russia's request, and he as well has been blacklisted as well.
So, Connie, I guess a real question is, how much impact do we expect these new sanctions to have on the ground in Pyongyang?
Well, that's exactly the question that's being asked by many here in South Korea. Now, but many experts doubt that this blacklist is actually going to have a real pain effect on Pyongyang. They say that this is because the blacklist is more symbolic rather than practical in terms of punishing the North. And it's also because these individuals or entities have not had any financial transactions with South Koreans. But of course, it does help keep the international community aware and allows them to keep an eye out for these figures.
Let's go back to the Rajin-Khasan project. Of course, this is a project that delivers Russian oil from Russia through North Korea to South Korea. And this was really the pivotal point of President Park Geun-hye's Eurasia initiative now, and they're scrapping that as well.
Unfortunately, that's right. The Rajin-Khasan logistics project will be scrapped with Seoul's unilateral decision. Now, this was a symbol of trilateral cooperation between the two Koreas and Russia, which aimed at transporting Russian coal and goods to South Korea via North Korea by rail and sea, like you just mentioned, Kanyang. Now, this was an inevitable outcome for South Korea because South Korea is banning foreign vessels that have previously docked in North Korea. Now, Seoul told Russia on Monday that it was going to withdraw from the project as it can neither allow the private consortiums involved to visit the North nor allow ships from North Korea to make port calls in the South. This measure is aimed at cutting off money supplies to the regime as Pyongyang will no longer get revenue coming from railway and port fees. South Korea did say, however, that it would review a resumption of the project if and when there is progress made in denuclearizing North Korea.
Well, today's new sanctions, they're definitely not the first time that South Korea has imposed sanctions on North Korea.
Right. Well, South Korea's strongest punishment on North Korea came when it actually shut down the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex. Now, the complex had been immune to inter-Korean relations, but South Korea decided to take a more hardline stance following Pyongyang's long-range missile launch in early February. And the UN Security Council adopted its strongest sanction yet on North Korea last week, but we'll have to see how much and how far the international community will go to implement the measures to make Pyongyang give up its nuclear weapons program.
Right, so implementation and now enforcement is key, and we'll also have to, we cannot rule out the possibility of North Korea responding to the latest measures.
For sure.
So we'll have to be on the watch out for that. All right, Connie, thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Well, speaking of enforcement, we're learning today that 4 North Korean cargo ships were blocked from entering Chinese and Russian ports over the weekend under the condition of the recently adopted UN resolution against that regime. How is the multilateral sanctions beginning to bite North Korea? Our Kwon So-ah has this report.
Among South Korea's additional independent sanctions on North Korea, there has been great emphasis on the maritime sanctions, which the government has been considering for quite some time. And their importance is also reflected by the swift actions taken by several countries to implement the UN Security Council's measures regarding North Korean ships. 4 North Korean cargo ships were blocked from Chinese and Russian ports over the weekend under the conditions of the recently adopted UN Security Council resolution. According to Seoul-based news agency YTN Tuesday, 3 of 31 North Korean ships tied to a Pyongyang-based shipping company that are on the UN's blacklist tried to enter Chinese ports on Friday and Saturday. Another blacklisted North Korean vessel was refused entry into Russia on Sunday. Seoul's foreign ministry was said to have known about the scheduled port calls and requested that the two countries refuse the ship's entry. According to an official, the UN Sanctions Committee will be responsible for monitoring ship names as they have been changed frequently in the past. Experts say preventing the ships from getting maritime insurance by sanctioning insurance firms would be another way to hinder the North's illicit activities. Meanwhile, Mexico is also on standby to respond to the resolution. The North Korean vessel Mudubong has been held at a Mexican port for almost 2 years. Mexico's foreign ministry says it is awaiting guidance from the UN and will not take independent actions such as confiscating the ship until then. The Philippines was the first country to impound a North Korean cargo ship just days after the unprecedented sanctions on North Korea were passed. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, in line with the stern responses that have emerged from the international community against North Korea's fourth nuclear test and latest rocket launch, its only ally has made clear as well that it will not condone such provocations anymore. But that doesn't really mean that it will turn back on Pyongyang. Our Kim Hyun-bin has this report.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says that the newly adopted UN resolution on North Korea will not resolve the communist regime's problems. Speaking in front of reporters on Tuesday after China's annual meeting of its rubber-stamp parliament, Wang also pointed out that as China and North Korea share bilateral and diplomatic ties, Beijing will help the regime if it seeks development and security. But Wang also clearly emphasized China's unwavering commitment to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
We have an unwavering commitment to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and we will not accommodate the DPRK's pursuit of nuclear and missile programs.
The Foreign Ministry also expressed openness towards holding three-way and five-way talks, excluding North Korea, an idea that was proposed by South Korean President Park Geun-hye after Pyongyang's latest provocations. Wang has also been a supporter of restarting the six-party denuclearization talks, which involves the U.S., China, Russia, Japan, and the two Koreas, which has been stalled since 2008. South Korea's foreign ministry, meanwhile, announced on Tuesday that it will be sending its newly appointed chief nuclear envoy, Kim Hong-kyun, to Washington. He will arrive there Thursday for a three-day visit, which includes a meeting with his U.S. counterpart, Sung Kim. The two are expected to discuss a wide array of issues regarding North Korea, including handling and countering future provocations, and way to bring about change in the communist regime. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, we brought to you last night that North Korea launched cyber attacks hacking into smartphones of key South Korean officials. The details of North Korea's cyber terrorism acts have surfaced. This during a government-wide emergency security meeting today. What's even more alarming, though, is that the threat of an even bigger cyber attack from North Korea is becoming more pronounced, especially in the wake of the latest sanctions slapped on that regime. Our Park Ji-won shares with us these findings by South Korea's intelligence agency.
South Korea's National Intelligence Service has announced that North Korea tried to hack into the smartphones of dozens of key South Korean officials from late February to early March. It said the North was successful in about 1 in 5 attempts, with malware found on the infected devices that would give the North access to information on phone calls and text and voice messages. Pyongyang also attempted to steal the email addresses and passwords of railway employees using phishing emails during the months of January and February. The intelligence agency said North Korea also hacked into the networks of financial security software companies and public institutions. The details came out as the intelligence service held an emergency government-wide meeting on cyber terrorism Tuesday morning. 14 government ministries and agencies took part in the meeting to discuss measures to counter such threats based on past experiences. The spy agency warned the ministries to be on the alert for additional cyber attacks from the North, as it believes Pyongyang could be preparing for a large-scale cyber attack on South Korea. North Korea was behind major cyber attacks on South Korea's banking system and television stations in 2011 and 2013. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
In the hot seat at the nation's parliament is also a cyber terrorism bill, along with others. The ruling Sanctioning Party proposed holding a vote on some of these key bills tomorrow, a day before the current session ends. But the main opposition party has rejected that idea, saying lawmakers should negotiate changes to the bills first. Our political correspondent Ji Myung-gi reports from the National Assembly.
The ruling Sanctioning Party said Tuesday that it is the lawmaking body's duty to vote on a series of key bills.
We must have a voting session on Wednesday. The opposition should know that it's our duty to pass bills. We need to pass urgent economic bills and a cyber terrorism bill for national security.
The National Intelligence Service has recently warned of possible cyber attacks from North Korea, targeting key infrastructure in South Korea. The floor leader said that South Korea had been the target of the third most distributed denial-of-service attacks last year that shut down or deleted websites. He urged the Assembly Speaker to use his authority to put the cyber terrorism bill up for a vote without the opposition's consent. Concerning the economic bills, the floor leader said a bill on fostering the service sector is a top priority. He claimed the bill will help create 690,000 new jobs, though that was disputed by the main opposition Minju Party of Korea.
Passing a bill on promoting the service sector will not create that many jobs. The president and the ruling party are exaggerating. Think tanks also say not that many jobs will be created.
The policymaker accused the president of being dogmatic by pressuring the legislature to pass contentious bills without the opposition's consent. His remarks came after the presidential office of Cheong Wa-dae had called on the parliament to approve the cyber terrorism legislation. The presidential office said the bill would protect South Korean citizens by enabling state agencies to track down the IP addresses of suspected terrorists. He concluded by saying the party would not consent to the Saenuri Party's proposal to vote on the bills. Kim Young-gin, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye has once again pointed to the service sector as the economy's new future growth engine, as well as a key to job creation. As our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun reports, the president called for the passage of related bills as soon as possible so that the sector could fully realize its potential.
Speaking with industry insiders on Tuesday, President Park said the service sector is the key to job creation and new growth, as it creates twice as many jobs as traditional manufacturing, with factory production and exports having limited room for growth in the future. To get things moving, she called for passage of a bill aimed at fostering the service sector, which has been pending at the National Assembly for over 4 years now.
이렇게 경제 활성화의 핵심적인 방법을 알면서도 손을 쓸 수 없는 현재의 상황이 안타깝습니다. 서비스법이 만들어지면 서비스 산업을 발전시킬 전략을 체계적으로 마련하고 집중 지원해서 다시 한번 우리 경제의 도약을 이끌 수 있습니다.
The government estimates up to 690,000 jobs could be created if the bill were passed, especially for young people seeking quality positions. President Park pointed to developed countries like the UK and the Netherlands that boast employment rates of over 70%, which was made possible because they shifted their focus to the service sector earlier on. She said the figure, which for Korea was at 66% as of 2015, will be impossible for Seoul to achieve without the expansion of the service sector. The government also rejects the opposition party's argument that the bill could spur privatization of the healthcare sector, saying that is not an intended part of the bill, nor is the bill meant to disrupt the public nature of the healthcare industry. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
President Park's worry is no exaggeration, it seems. Households headed by those in their 20s and 30s have seen their income dip to negative levels for the first time, which in turn has led to a drop in consumption in this country. Experts attribute the downturn to rising youth unemployment. Kim Min-ji reports.
Young Koreans may have to tighten their belts. According to Statistics Korea, households led by those aged 39 years or under with 2 or more family members earned an average of roughly $3,600 a month in 2015. That's down 0.6% from a year ago and marks the first yearly drop since relevant data was compiled in 2003. And reflective of their lower income, they are also spending less. Last year, their household spending dipped almost 1% to about $2,800, the first drop since related records began.
The ability for households to spend in comparison to their income has fallen. This is because they are responsible for fixed costs like rent, education fees, or phone bills. But their income is not increasing.
Experts attribute the decrease in income and spending among younger Koreans to rising youth unemployment. Last year, the youth jobless rate hit a record high of 9.2%. Even for those able to find jobs, they are mainly in the form of temporary work, such as one-year contracts or internships, leaving young workers without much stability. Experts say it's a vicious cycle as a reduction in income inevitably leads to less consumption, and in the long run, if that takes a toll on the country's economic growth rate, companies will be unwilling to take on more recruits. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, the saying goes that when China sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. Maybe not the rest of the world, but Asia's leading economies have recorded significant drops in exports in the first quarter of this year. And not so surprisingly, China's flagging economy seems to be a major factor, especially in neighboring countries, namely South Korea and Taiwan. Oh Jung-hee has the details.
So far, the year isn't looking so bright, with slumping exports seen all over Asia. In the case of China, exports fell over 25% in February compared to a year earlier. The drop amounted to $32.5 billion, according to China's customs data. It marked the 8th consecutive month of decline for the country and the biggest drop in the last 7 years. With outbound shipments on the decline and concerns of a slowdown, the Chinese government has skipped on revealing its specific target rate of trade growth for this year. It seems inevitable, however, for neighboring countries to also feel a blow.
The global economic outlook remains gloomy, with falling global oil prices, decreasing overall investment and consumption, and a slowing Chinese economy.
As a result, South Korea and Taiwan also saw declines in their exports as China, one of their biggest trading partners, suffers from a significant decrease in foreign trade. South Korea marked its 14th straight month of declining exports. It saw a near 12% drop in February compared to the same month last year. Since December, it's posted double-digit drops. Taiwan's exports also dropped nearly 12% on year, falling for 13 straight months. Experts say that enacting a stimulus plan and possibly lowering interest rates will be key factors for both South Korea and Taiwan to consider during their fiscal policy meetings this month. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
A UN committee has released a report condemning Japan's stance on the issue of its wartime military sex slavery. Tokyo has rejected the report, saying the UN has not given fair consideration to its point of view. Kwon Jang-ho reports.
At a UN committee meeting last month, Japan's Deputy Foreign Minister Shinsuke Sugiyama denied his country's involvement in wartime sexual slavery.
The Japanese government conducted an investigation and found that the forceful taking away of women by the military and government authorities could not be confirmed in any document.
On Monday, the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women released a report on the session that is critical of Sugiyama's statements. The report recommends that Japan's leaders and public officials stop making disparaging statements regarding their country's responsibility, which have the effect of re-traumatizing the victims. The committee also pushed Japan to further acknowledge its responsibility by integrating the issue into its textbooks to ensure historical facts are objectively presented to students and the public at large. The Japanese government blasted the report on Tuesday, saying that Korea and Japan settled the issue in their landmark agreement reached in December.
It is really regrettable and unacceptable that the committee didn't take the Japanese government's explanation into full consideration and criticize the agreement between Japan and South Korea.
The South Korean government has so far avoided raising issue with Japan, following the stipulation in the December deal that the two nations would no longer criticize each other on the matter.
Fulfilling the December 28th agreement faithfully and sincerely is the most important thing. Through that, working to recover the honor and dignity of the victims and easing their emotional pain even one day sooner is what's important.
The victims and their families have already expressed their anger and frustration at the settlement, saying it is not enough and that they want the Japanese government to take legal responsibility for its wartime atrocities. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
When IBM's Deep Blue Bee chess champion Garry Kasparov back in 1997, the world was agog over AI's potential. Well, tomorrow, Google DeepMind's AlphaGo system will face an even tougher test in a series of matches against a top-ranked master in the ancient game of Go. The tournament will in many ways be an ultimate challenge for the artificial intelligence system following its victory last fall, which was roughly a decade earlier than anyone had expected over European champion Fan Hui. Is this humanity's last stand? Lee Ji-won has the latest on this high-profile face-off in Seoul.
Alphabet Incorporation Chairman Eric Schmidt, Demis Hassabis, the CEO of DeepMind Technologies and developer of AlphaGo, and Korea's Se-dol, the reigning human grandmaster of the game, all appeared at a press conference on Tuesday in Seoul. They each had some final words before a major tournament pitting E against the AI program AlphaGo gets started on Wednesday.
I am still confident that I will win against AlphaGo, but if I understand the algorithm of the program correctly, if artificial intelligence is able to imitate human intuition, it may be a challenge for me to win all 5 games. But I will do my best to show that it's not time for artificial intelligence to overcome humanity yet.
The Go player added that he's never played against someone who isn't human. To prepare himself for the challenge, he did simulations where he imagined the tournament and the atmosphere to get himself used to the feeling that he's playing by himself. Team AlphaGo is just as ready. Since the program's victory against a human in a tournament last October, Hassabis, the program developer, has been working out some of the kinks and said he's excited to test the program again during the upcoming event.
And this is why we want to have this match, is we need to see if there are any weaknesses we don't know about. So of course we've tried to fix weaknesses that we know, but there may be something that our systems don't do that brilliant players like Se-dol can create.
Both sides are confident of a victory, and with Se-dol's creative playing and AlphaGo's almost undefeated history, both sides have a good chance of pulling it off. In any case, the world will be watching when the winner of the first match is announced tomorrow. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, artificial intelligence is expected to impact many aspects of our lives, including the way we drive. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me. Now, Bruce, BMW has revealed a self-driving car, concept car, that would be similar to Google's DeepMind in that it learns from humans.
That's right. I mean, that's what makes them similar. And Google, it seems, BMW rather, seems is blurring the lines between humans and machines with this car. It unveiled what's called the Vision Next 100 to mark the company's 100th anniversary and where it plans to head in the next century of making cars.
So how close is this German automaker in producing these cars and commercializing them?
Well, it's a concept car for a reason. They've got a long way to go. But according to Wired magazine, this car, Next Vision 100, was driven onto the stage, but it's unreal for now. It's jam-packed with ideas, though.
We assume that in the future, human beings and machine will cooperate even closer, meld together if you will. And of course, making the car more intelligent will give the driver an intelligent co-pilot, which we've called a companion.
According to BMW's blog, the companion becomes smarter the more it learns about the driver's habits. So at some stage, this blog says, the companion would be able to automatically perform routine tasks for the driver. BMW said this car could start rolling off the production line in the next 20 or 30 years. Russian tennis champion Maria Sharapova has put the spotlight on a relatively unknown drug, enhancing perhaps because she was taking it. The 5-time Grand Slam winner admitted she failed a drug test at the Australian Open. The fallout for the star has been harsh and quick. Nike suspended its endorsement of Sharapova, and Swiss watch brand Tag Heuer canceled contract negotiations. Sharapova says she let her fans down and made a huge mistake.
I know that with this, I face consequences, and I don't want to end my career this way, and I really hope that I will be given another chance to play this game.
The The drug Sharapova says she first took in 2006 as prescribed by a family doctor for health reasons is called meldonium. According to the Guardian newspaper, it increases blood flow, which improves exercise capacity in athletes. The drug was only banned by the International Tennis Federation on January 1st. Sharapova says it was never illegal while she was taking it.
So Sharapova came out positive with this drug in January, and it was only January 1st that the federation decided to put this drug on the ban list.
Yeah, it was banned January 1st. So despite taking it for 10 years, it was legal most of that time. The investigation is pending right now. The sentence could be dropped if they find out that there was not negligence. She didn't know this was going on, but that's yet to be decided.
So there is a chance still that this could be reversed.
It's just a provisional ban right now.
All right, we'll have to wait and see and be on the watch out for this very famous tennis player.
It's interesting.
All right, Bruce, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Now, a partial solar eclipse can be observed tomorrow here in Seoul and other regions as well. So for more on that and the weather update, let's go over to our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center. So Ji-hyun, if I go back to my middle school science class, a solar eclipse is when the moon really overlaps with the sun and your morning becomes night. Right?
Good memories, Kanya. Very good. Now, tomorrow morning, about 3.5% of the sun will be covered by moon from 10:11 a.m. to 11:19 a.m. here in the capital, while 8.2% of the sun will be covered in Jeju.
Right, that is very partial. But for those of our viewers in Indonesia, there will be a total eclipse there tomorrow morning, so make sure you check that out. But Ji-hyun, the weather seems to have gotten quite chilly again today. Is there a cold snap returning?
It feels like it, right, Kanyang? And numbers it prove it. We'll wake up to sub-zero conditions in the morning tomorrow here in the capital, and daily highs will also be below the seasonal averages, so be sure to dress warmly. It seems like rainy day has been on for southern regions, quite heavy in Jeju and southern coastal regions, and more rain is expected till tomorrow morning. So up to 16 millimeters of rainfall is expected in Jeju, and 8 centimeters of snow is expected for parts of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-do province, but all of this should let up by the afternoon. Now, temperature-wise, it's going to be a cold morning with a low kicking off at -2 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. Busan and Jeju will start out the day at 3 and 6. And as for the daily highs, Seoul will top out at 6, 9 for Daegu, Daejeon, and Gwangju. Now, it's going to get colder each day until Sunday when spring-like conditions return to the peninsula. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is our broadcast on this Tuesday night. As much as technology has made our lives very convenient, I'd like to think that there's still human touch needed for any kind of robots or electronics or artificial intelligence. So here's one support for Se-dol, the human champion of Go before tomorrow's competition. I'm Moon Gun-young. Thank you as always for watching, and we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.